Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we're talking Combobox and Listbox. So these guys are two different Tkinter widgets that I'm going to cover in this video. I'm going to go through their different properties, how you can create them, different things you can do with them, and yeah, that's really it. So this video is part of my beginner Tkinter series. However, if you only want to see this part of the tutorials and if you're only interested in these two widgets, you can watch this video as a standalone. There's nothing that is really like a dependency here. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. So again, I'm using Visual Studio Code. As always, you can use any Python text editor you like or IDE, so long as you're comfortable with it and you can run Python and use Tkinter with it. All right. So my starter code looks like this. Once again, I am importing Tkinter. So this is a crucial part. Every time we're building a Tkinter application, you have to import it. Next, I'm defining my root widget, which I named window. So what is the root widget? It's essentially a container that will contain all my other widgets. So think of it like that. It's like the parent of every other widget. And finally, I'm setting a title to my Tkinter window. So it's just called Tkinter tutorial. So the title is this part. Let me run it. So yeah, it's this part that you see right here. So this is the title of the window. And finally, I am running a main loop. So how does this main loop thing work? Essentially, it will run an infinite loop to keep the application executing. So as long as your application with Tkinter is executing, this main loop is running. So it's like an infinite loop. As soon as I exit the application, the main loop will stop running. So that's really it for the starter code. I have two different files. I have combobox.py and I have listbox.py, and both of them have the exact same starter code. All right, so let's start by creating a combo box. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import TTK from Tkinter. Now, what is TTK? So actually, I was hoping to have a separate video for this and actually talk about the difference between Tkinter and TTK. But essentially, this is like a sub-module of Tkinter in which the widgets are themed. So it stands for themed. So what do we mean by theme? This means that for the regular widgets that you have, buttons, labels, entries, things like that, you can apply themes and styles to better format them and make them look more modern. So this is one way to do it. You can use this TTK. Now, so far in all of the videos in this series, I've been using the regular Tkinter widgets, and I was hoping to get to it in a later video. However, since we have to show the combo box, I'm going to explain it very briefly here, and it's just as I said, so themed widgets. Think of it like that. So why do I need to actually explain it here? The reason is Combobox does not exist in the regular Tkinter library. So you actually need to use TTK so that you can create a combo box, and you can see that right here. So now I've just created my very first combo box, and this is what I have. So how does this combo box look like? So here you have ttk.combobox. If you've seen any of the previous videos, usually when I create something like a button or a spin box or a radio button, I would say tkinter.button. However, in case of the combo box, we will say ttk because it does not exist in Tkinter. All right, so what is this window parameter? As usual, again, if you've seen the other videos, this is probably like a breeze for you. You definitely understand this by now. However, if you're new here I am setting the parent of this widget. So the combo box is a widget. I need to give it a parent. So where will this widget exist? Inside what sort of container? The container here is the root widget itself, which is window. Okay, so think of it like a giant box, and inside this box we have our combo box. Okay, next I specify the values parameter. So this parameter will take as input a list, and it will be a list of values that you want to display in your combo box, and you'll see those when I run it in a second. Finally, I just say combo.pack. So why do I say combo.pack? We know that in Tkinter there are always two different steps to add any widget to your screen. First, you need to create the widget. So you need to define it. Use tkinter.something or ttk.something, and you pass all the parameters. And then the second part is you have to position it on your screen using pack, place, or grid. So these guys are geometry managers. I've talked about them in a separate video like extensively, but essentially we're going to use pack here because it's the most straightforward one, and it will simply just center our combo box within the window, and yeah. Okay, so let me run it. So as you can see right here, the interface doesn't look super attractive. I can stretch it out and resize it, and you can see that we have a combo box right here. So the combo box is essentially what you may call a drop down in other libraries, but this is how it looks like. So you have a drop down list, and then this will pull up like a list here, and you can select any one of these guys, and this will reformat this one right here. Okay, so in Tkinter, the combo box itself is actually an entry. So this is a text entry in which I can write literally anything attached to a list box. So we're going to talk about the list box later, but think of it like that. So when I pull up this drop down, it creates a list box, and then I can choose any of the list items that you have right here. Okay, so as you can see, the values property, when we passed this list to it, it essentially added all these guys here. Okay, now one thing to note is whatever you type here, you can type literally anything. So you're not restricted to actually one of these 4 options. However, you can restrict it later on, and you'll see that as we move forward in this video. But this is how you create the most basic combo box. You just assign a parent, which is the window. So you place it inside your window, and then you give it a list of values. Okay. All right. So let me just close this. Now, the next thing actually is binding. So what is binding? Well, here, whenever you're implementing this and you want to add a combo box to your application, obviously you want to record some information. You don't want to actually just put a combo box, put some values in it, have the user click it, and then not do anything. So you want to record this information that you have in the combo box. Okay, so how do we do that? Using this bind. So the bind will bind an event to a callback function. What does this mean? So here I have, this is the name of an event, combo box selected. It's pretty self-explanatory. Combo box selected means any item from the combo box was selected. So we sort of changed our selection. Maybe first I had Monday, then I decided to select Tuesday or something else. So the combo function is a callback. So what does the callback mean? This is the function that will get executed when this event occurs. So when the combo box is selected, I will then execute the function combo function. Here it's highlighted as an error. This is simply because it doesn't exist yet. So let me actually close this and have the function right here. So whenever you're binding an event to a callback function, your function has to take event as a parameter. Even though we're not actually using it here, you actually have to have this. Otherwise, Tkinter will throw an error. Okay, so this, you're telling it that this callback function will take an event as an argument. After that, what I want to do inside my function is up to me. I can come here and print hello world. I can just print hi. I can just pass it and not do anything. But really what we want to do, we said we want to record the information inside the combo box. So what I do is simply combo.get. And after I get the information, so what does the dot get to? It gets the currently selected one. I will simply print it. So let's take a look actually. And now, let's say I pressed on Tuesday, you can see that Tuesday was printed out. So anytime combo is selected, so this event occurs, let me just scroll down, you can see Thursday. Anytime this event occurs, the callback function, combo function, will get executed and it will print out combo.get. And this is how you are able to record this information. All right. So what else can I actually do? Another thing you can do is you can actually use the code to set the contents of the combo box. So what do I mean by this? So let's say here, rather than just printing combo.get, I want to actually set it to something new. Every time it gets changed, I want to set the value to something new. I mean, is that intuitive? Not really, but we're just doing this so I can show you an example how you can set the value. So now I can just say combo.set, and here I'm just going to pass any string, and I can just say selection changed. Okay, and how will this set work? It will simply set the contents of this entry right here. So now I can, for example, choose Tuesday, and you can see that it got changed to selection changed. So this set function will just set the contents of this combo box. Now I can actually clear this from here and just return this to the print. And what I can do is, after creating the combo box, I can set a default value. So for example, I can come here and I can just say combo.set, and I will say select day. And now if I run it, you can see that select day will appear when I start and when I launch the application. And now I can change it obviously, and I can't return select day. Okay, so this set will simply change the contents of the entry right here. Now, we did say one thing, that I can actually change this entry and I can type anything I want. I may want to restrict this in my application. Let's say, for example, I'm actually choosing the days of the week. I don't want the user to type anything. There are a discrete set of 7 days a week, right? So we don't really want the user to do whatever they want. So what do I do here? I can also do another thing, and I just can come here and I can say combo dot, actually not dot, so I can say combo state. So here I'm changing the state property of this combo box, and I'm going to set it to be read only. Okay, so now let me actually run this, and you can see, so it still behaves the same way, but if I come here, I cannot type. So I'm trying to type with my keyboard. It's impossible. This combo box is read only. By doing so, I've restricted the user from actually typing anything into the entry part of the combo box, and they can only select one from the dropdown. Okay, I think that's it for the combo. Actually, one last thing I want to show you. You can also change the days here, the values here, using the value property. So I just can come here and I can say combo sub values. And by doing so, I can reset this values guy right here. So rather than having the days, let's say I want to have a list of months. So July, August, and September. So I know these aren't all the months, but let's just do that for example. And now if I run it and I have the new version of values. So by doing so, I was able to set the values to be something else. How can you use this in your application? For example, you can have a button. When this button is clicked, change the values list of this combo box right here. Okay, so this is really it for the combo box. I showed you how you can create one. I explained sort of why you need to use the TTK part, not the actual Tkinter library. I showed you how you can bind this to a callback function. I also showed you how you can change the state and how you can reset the values. So for combo box, that's really it. Let's actually move on to the list box. Okay, so the list box, here I have the exact same starter code. If I actually run it, you can see we have this blank screen and it's resizable. You have the same title. So same thing that we discussed at the start of the video. So what is a list box? A list box is essentially what you saw when you pressed on the drop-down menu in the combo box. So it's a list of items. Now, one thing you need to note about the list box, it does not exist in the themed widgets submodule. So it has to be part of Tkinter and not TTK. So this is one crucial difference between the combo box and the list box. So let me start by creating a list box. Actually, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create this variable. So what is this variable? Here I'm saying tkinter.string var. Now, if you've seen my previous video in which I talked about the spin box, the radio button, as well as the check button, we use the string var to sort of be bound to the checkbox and the radio button and store the values in a variable. So here what we're going to do, we're going to store the values of this list in a variable. Now the value property, we set it to a list. So this is the list of all the items we're going to see in the list box. So again, we're going to show these 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and this will be stored in a list. So this is just a standard Python list. You pass this list to the property value, and then this will be inside a tkinter.string var. So this string var is a variable that will be bound to this list. I'll explain more in just a second. So let me actually create the list box. So you can see I just use tkinter.listbox. Again, there's no TTK here. You have to use Tkinter because listbox does not exist in the TTK. Okay, so here I define the listbox and then I say the parent is window. Again, the same idea. You have to say that this listbox belongs to our root widget in some way. So either it has to belong to another container inside window or it belongs to window directly. In this example, it has to belong to the parent directly just to keep things simple. Okay, next we have this list variable, and I'm just going to say that this will be equal to list var. So what is the list variable property? Here I'm saying what is the variable that is bound to this list box. So again, I'll show you in a second, but this is also related to this guy right here. Finally, the height, I will explain this when we run the application. Last step before running is we have to actually pack it. So as we said in Tkinter, two steps. You have to first create your list box or create whatever widget you're using. then you have to pack, place, or grid. So in this case, we're using pack. Okay, let me run it, and you can see that this is the list box that we have. I can resize it. This is how it looks like. It's a box with a list, so it's pretty intuitive. You can click on any one of these guys. So let's actually explain what happened here. This list box is bound to a variable. So as the contents of the variable list var changes, so for example, if I change the contents of this variable, as these contents change, this list will change as well. So the values inside this list will change. Okay? So think of it like that. So I have to pass to list variable a certain string var which contains a list, and this is the list that we have right here. Okay? Next is height. So I said I'd explain this when we run it. Height is basically how many you can show per application. So how many lines. So here I set height equal 5. So height is equal to 5. Why is that? So as you can see, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you have 5. This blank line right here. If I had said height equal 10, it would be much longer. Height equal 1, it would be 1 row. I'll show you that towards the end of the video. But for now, this is what height does. Okay? All right. So now that we have created it, another thing we can do is you can actually change the select mode of the list. So previously when you run it, you could only click on one of these guys. With the select mode extended, you can now click on multiple of these. Okay, so you can just use your mouse to press and scroll, and doing that, you will select all of them. Another thing you can do is you can press Control on your keyboard to select multiple of these guys while also skipping one of them. Okay, so this is select mode extended. When you specify this, when you create your list box, you're saying, okay, I can select more than one of these guys. All right. Okay, so we've created the list box. I've showed you sort of the different mode that you can have. What's the last thing we want to do? We want to also bind it to a function similar to what we did previously. So now we use the listbox.bind, very similar to what we did with the combo box. And here, what's the event that we're actually binding? The event is called listbox_select. So similar to the combo box, what are we doing here? We're essentially saying when a certain item in this list box is selected, go to callback function list selected. So this function doesn't exist yet. I'm going to add it, and here you go. So I define my function. Again, it has to take as input the event itself. Okay, so the input is the event. In our case, the event will be listbox_select. And finally, what we're going to do inside our function is up to us. So we're going to print listbox.get. So why do I pass this value right here? Here I'm essentially saying I want to print listbox.get for the listbox.currentSelection. And I'm just going to show you what that means in a second. So let me actually run it and demo what we're actually doing. So scroll down here. Okay. So if I press on Monday, you can see that Monday gets printed. If I press on Tuesday, you can see that Tuesday gets printed, and so on. So what is this listbox.currentSelection? I'm actually going to change this and remove the listbox.get so I can better explain what's going on. Now if I run it, if I press on Monday, you will see that 0 was printed out. So what is this 0? It's inside a tuple. Now you can see 1. If I highlight these, you can see 0, 1, and then 0, 1, 2. So every time I click on an additional one, here I'm printing out the current selection index. So you know, in programming, everything starts at an index of 0. Let me actually just close this. Everything starts at an index of 0. When I clicked Monday, I had 0 pop up here. So this is the 0th element in this list. So this part right here. When I pressed on Tuesday, it's the first element. So it's the element with index number 1. When I pressed on Wednesday, this is index number 2. When I pressed on all three of them, I had 0, 1. Okay, sorry. I had 0, 1, 2. So now I'm getting the index. So previously, what I was doing when I printed out listbox.get this current selection, what I did is when the index is 0, I was getting the listbox at index 0. So here, let me run it. When I press on Monday, what's essentially happening is listbox.currentSelection will be equal to 0. And then I'm saying listbox.get whatever element is at position 0. In this case, it's actually Monday. Okay, so this is how this binding works, and this is how this function works so that we can record the information that's currently being selected. Again, how can you use this inside an application? You can use the list box to present the user with multiple options and then have them select one of it, and then you can record this information and proceed accordingly and perform some sort of action depending on what the user selected. Okay, one last thing actually I want to show you before we end this video is this height guy right here. So what do we actually mean by height equal 5? I told you that this can be changed to, let's say for example, 2. So if I run it now, you can see that only 2 elements show up. However, I can just use my arrow buttons to scroll down and you can see the other guys, so Wednesday and Thursday. I can make this to be actually 10, and you can see that it will look longer. So now it takes a space of 10. So here you have like space for additional 6. So even though we had 4 elements, we specify the height equal 10, and the height will decide how high or how long our list box is. I can say height equal 1, and in this case it's going to be tiny. So here if I press on it, I can use the arrow keys in my keyboard to go down or up as I please. Okay, so that's really it for this video. I hope you found it useful. In the video we discussed both the Combobox and the Listbox. We discussed some similarities between the two as well as some key differences. We talked about how you can bind events to certain functions and how these functions can get executed and how you can record the information in your Combobox or your Listbox. So that's really it. Stay tuned for the next video. We're going to talk about more widgets in Tkinter, but